So I'm going to do something that's very difficult for a designer to do. And I'm just going to show you the wood shop in its exact state the way it is right now. I think a designer always wants to wait until something is finished. We always have another iteration and we don't want to show it until it's complete. This video is a deep dive into the design of my wood shop. Telling this story means getting inside my head. There are lots of rabbit holes in there, so let's try not to get lost. The wood shop design is incredibly simple, yet there are many layers of complexity. I think most good things are like that. They're both simple and complex. The form of the building is so simple, it's almost primal. It's a box with a single slope roof. The plan is 2 squares, 12 feet by 12 feet, total 12 by 24. The total area is 12 times 24, or 288 square feet. The front facade is 2 squares, 12 feet by 12 feet. The other 3 walls are 8 feet tall, which is 2/3 the height of the front facade. The roof that sits on top of the tall front facade and the short walls has a 4 and 12 pitch. The 2x4 framing is 2 feet on center. The floor is 12 sheets of 4x8 plywood. These are very simple proportions and lumber-friendly dimensions. People have told me they wanted to be an architect, but they didn't think they could handle the math. The numbers I use are 2 and 4 and 6 and 8 and 12. After a few decades, these numbers have become my friends, but proportions are a deep rabbit hole. So let's move on. So we started building another part, which will be my wife's studio here, and ultimately it will connect onto the roof at the end of the wood shop. So there'll be a kind of a open porch with a roof over it, and then another small building. That building will be painted black. So you can see a little test area here of the paint color, which I like more than this stain, so we're going to repaint the wood shop. The problem with the stain is it's very hard to clean. Paint, I think, will be able to clean it a little bit better. The wood shop has slats on it. Those slats will be reconditioned, and I have a sample I'll show you over here. Now let's get into ideas and concepts underlying the design of the wood shop. This is design theory, and it can get kind of stuffy. One of my mentors used to use the word notion, and I like that. I think it takes the pressure off the thinking. For this video, I'm going to go into 3 notions. 1, to work outside. 2, to create a folly. And 3, to express the construct. So the cedar on our house is aged, which is fine, but I kind of want it to age differently. And I've found this toner sealer, which I really like. So the first notion, to work outside. When my wife and I were building our house about 25 years ago, we didn't have any money. We couldn't wait until we were older so we would have money. We're still waiting. At that time, we had a $100,000 construction loan. That was an unbelievable amount of money for us, but it was not really enough to build a custom house. I really got into woodworking because we had to build all the millwork ourselves. We'd already built almost everything else ourselves, but we needed a little bit more precision to build the cabinets. Architects call cabinets millwork, by the way. I agonized a long time before buying a $300 Delta table saw. But with that saw and the miter saw my father gave me, and sheer ignorance, we made all the cabinets and shelves and interior trim for our house. At some point, my wife Chris asked me to move the table saw out of the dining room. From that point on, I worked on the back deck. I liked working outside. So much of my life has been spent inside, glaring into computer screens. It's just nice to be outside. Years later, when I wanted to improve my woodworking skills, I realized dragging cheap tools onto the back deck was not going to cut it. I needed a wood shop, but I didn't really want to be inside. So the first notion was to build a wood shop that's as much like being outside as possible. Here you can see some test panels For the new building, the exterior will be black and the interior walls will be white, and the cabinetry will be this whitewashed wood composite. You also see the slats on the wood shop. I think they're going to go away on the courtyard side. The reason they're there is to hide the view of the mess in my wood shop, but I've gotten better at controlling that, so I think they can be edited out. One red set of ropes. That's actually kind of a test for the future. I think ultimately when the framing is painted black, all the ropes will be red and the door will be red. And that'll be a theme for our entire house as we refresh the whole thing. So the wood shop sits at the back of our house. It's kind of an extension of the wood slats that clad the house itself. It's a simple building set on concrete piers. It has extension deck. I think most Americans spend too much time inside. I know I do. Accepting the weather meant the wood shop didn't need to be insulated or conditioned. The walls could be transparent. So I clad the wood frame in polycarbonate panels, much like a greenhouse. In order to open the walls, I bought 2 3-foot wide glass doors and 1 6-foot wide double glass door. I made 5 4-foot by 4-foot glass windows that you could pull up with ropes. To me, opening the wood shop is like rigging a sailboat. I often use nautical metaphors, but that's a rabbit hole we won't go down today. Being in the wood shop is like being outside. I feel very zen in the space, unless of course I've screwed something up. I'm not yet an enlightened man. So this is the wood shop from the back. You can see that the cedar needs a little bit of refreshing, and I think the repainted black will be a much nicer contrast. Building sets on 6 concrete piers, but I made some mistakes with those piers, and over time I've loaded so much heavy equipment into the back of the wood shop that I've overloaded those foundations. So I'm in the process of reinforcing this, and then I'll cover these foundations with earth so that the drainage goes down the hill and not under the wood shop. To explain the second notion, to create a folly, I have to get into the design of our house a little bit. An architectural folly is a building in the landscape, often seen by a more prominent structure. Our house is designed for introverts. It's our inward-focused world. One of my notion sketches for our house is 3 walls that surround a space and an entrance into that space. That is the essence of the design of our entire house. 3 walls enclosing an interior and an exterior space. I was inspired by Thomas Jefferson's design of the UVA campus. He bordered the lawn on 3 sides with buildings and left one side open to a view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. But be aware, I attended Virginia Tech, so if you tell anybody I said something nice about UVA, I will deny it. Anyway, my idea was to extend walls from the house to create an outdoor space and leave it open to the forest beyond. Over the years, I realized the few trees that we could save were simply not a forest, and they certainly weren't a view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So we needed something that would be the focus of our view from the house. We needed a folly. These cedar slats shade the building, they create some security, and they cover up the areas where there are benches and things against the wall. But as you can see, they could use a little refresh. We gaze at the face of our woodshop every day and every night. The roof opens up towards the courtyard with wide overhang. The roof is kind of like a big wing that is illuminated from below. I cut and installed 40 individual polycarbonate panels between the top of the walls and the roof plywood, so the light would spill out between the wood beams and onto the roof. Have I mentioned that I'm obsessive? But I don't regret the time and effort at all. The shop glows beautifully at night. We have a new ramp because our dog is getting old, and then this is the wood shop sitting at the back of the courtyard. The third notion to express the construction started way back when I was in architecture school. Architecture school is a time for big ideas and big questions. One day a professor asked our class what our position was. Many students answered quickly. Some quoted Heidegger or some other very smart regurgitation. I needed to think. I needed to consider the question very carefully and, more importantly, the answer. Ultimately, I arrived at the notion that everything we make must be made with some material and by some process. To me, what something is made of and how it is made should be expressed in its design. That simple notion has taken me years to define and refine. It is my position as an artist or an architect. My work may seem eclectic, from big buildings to little wood stools. I know the algorithms that crave consistency aren't happy about it. But to me, all the work's the same and is guided by that one simple notion. As always, we saved as many trees as we possibly could, and we even kind of notched the roof out when necessary to keep a tree. In the most basic sense, our wood shop is made of wood boards. It's a frame structure because it's made of 2x4s working together to take the loads. Wood framing is how almost all residential structures are built in the United States, even if they're clad in brick or fake beams. But authenticity in construction is another rabbit hole we just won't go down today. There are standard processes for framing a building. Boards or lumber is standardized into 2-foot increments. Ignoring these standards creates unnecessary waste. Some may feel these limitations inhibit their creativity, but I think we often overlook the true beauty of these materials and processes. I find working within these limitations allows me to express the true beauty of the thing I'm creating. So this side of the wood shop is similar to the other side, except that it has double doors that allows me to open those and push plywood through the table saw. The wood shop is probably almost 10 years old now. In a fundamental way, our wood shop is a bunch of 2x4s carefully assembled. I hope that simple fact is expressed in its design and is the essence of its beauty. So you can see that there are wood beams going in 2 directions on the roof, and that allows me to cantilever it out in 2 directions. You can also see that the roof sheathing is 2 layers of plywood. They're cut into 2x8 just because a 4x8 sheet of plywood is a little much for me to handle on the roof, and it's 2 layers thick so that none of the roofing nails poke through. If you go up into someone's attic, you often see that roofing nails poke through the sheathing, and I hate that. It also means it can cantilever a little farther out from the beam. See another little notch for a tree. So that's it. That's the story, at least for now. These are the 3 notions that led to the design of our wood shop. Design is a messy thing, but I've done my best to keep it simple. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. If you're interested in drawings of the wood shop, please comment. If there's enough interest, I'll package them and put them for sale on my website, ksbdesign.com. Also, let me know if you prefer more design-related content or more straightforward making-related content. Cheers!